Hello and welcome back. So in this tutorial we're just going to look at kind of real basic rig and posing the character. So this is my character here. Before we pose it, we're going to apply our mirror modifier, just because at the moment it's only got geometry on one side. So if we try and apply mirror, like we can rig it with the mirror modifier on, but it's not good practice. So while I'm not finished modeling this, there's loads more to do. I'm just going to apply this because we just want to see it in action. I'm going to do the same up here. I'm going to apply the mirror modifier on this. Again, I could add tons more detail to it, but just now it's not so important to do it like that because it's not going to deform on either side of the x-axis. Or but anyway, either way, we'll just do that. So I'm going to select this model and just select a loop cut here somewhere near the base. And I'm going to go Shift S and cursor to selected. So the cursor is right in the middle here. And I'm going to add Shift A, add armature. And we've added a skeleton. Now there's two, in the properties window over here, there are two tabs. One is the properties of the entire skeleton, and these are the properties of individual bones. Now we'll call this, actually we'll rename that. I can rename that, can't I? I'll hold the control key. There we go. So we'll call this sci-fi rig. So I don't know if this is just a small default kind of quirk of Blender 2.81, but I can't see that now. I'm in object mode. If I go to edit mode, and I select the bone. Let's see if I can get into edit mode. That's the bone there. If I go back to object mode, it disappears. Now I can, in this here, I can go viewport display in front. So it's like an X-ray sort of setup. But when I go back to object mode, it's gone, and that's because up here it's not set to be an object that is visible by default. So that's new to me. That was normally the case. It took me a while to figure out why I couldn't see it. But anyway, so you may have to turn that on if you want to see the bone in object mode. So I'm going to go into edit mode, take the tip of this and bring this down here. The number of bones in the spine should, I suppose, really correspond to how flexible you want the character to be. So that's my spine there. I'm going to extrude up for the neck and then extrude up for the head. I'm going to take this bone here, the bottom, and extrude on Y, and that'll be sort of my bend bone. Now we should name all of these. This should be bend. This should be, we'll call it S1 for spine 1 and S2, S3. And the reason we should name them, apart from it's good practice so you know what you're doing, when we come to pose these, if we have them named correctly, we can mirror them as well. So not necessarily these ones because they're all in the middle, but some of the other bones. And this is our head. So I want to create arms and feet, arms and legs. I'm not going to do fingers in this particular example. We will do that after Christmas. We'll be looking at a more sort of advanced, shall we say, rig, also inverse kinematics and stuff in it. But just for now, I'm going to turn this option on here. So I'm in edit mode for the skeleton, and I have an option here, and it's X mirror or X-axis mirror, and that allows me to do the following. I can select this bone and I can go Shift E, and it'll mirror bones out either side, and that's fantastic. It means I only have to build this bone or this arm once. So I can extrude to the elbow, to the wrist, and then into the hand. And I'm just going to try and make sure these are positioned correctly. On this axis as well. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to select the tip of this bone here and go Shift E. So I have some hips and extrude down to the knee and then to the foot. And I can extrude out for my heel and for my foot and then my toe. Now, there are lots and lots of videos on how to rig in Blender, and like I said, we'll get on to doing a bit more complicated stuff with inverse kinematics, and that should be my IK target and all the things that go with that. But for now, what we're going to do is just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to select, I'm going to leave that basically as it is. I'm not going to do very much with it at all. I'm just going to save my file. So let's give it one extra name count here. So it's poorly named face 8. But anyway, there it is. So I just want to join these together now. Like I said, we'll be doing this in a more involved way after Christmas. But I'm going to select the mesh and then shift select the skeleton. And the order you select them in is important. So the active object has to be the skeleton. So it has to be the last one selected. So mesh, then skeleton. And then you press Control P and then you hit with automatic weights. And what this is going to do, just before, so these are obviously all my verts here. So here it says vertex groups. We've never looked at this really. There are no vertex groups. I could like select them there. I could create a new vertex group and give it a name, and then I could assign them. So if I go, so this group here, if I go select, it's saying that these vertices are selected to that group. So I'm going to remove them, and I will remove the group. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this, go Control P, and then go with automatic weights. And then in the background there, Blender has taken this model and created just all of these groups. And they're for each bone. So you can see some of them are named, S1, S2, S3. And then the other bones that I didn't name are all just, Blender has auto-named them, 001, 002, etc. So we don't know which bone's which is why you should name them, so you know what bone to select here to see what vertices are attached to it, etc. But just for this exercise here, just as a introduction and to the concepts and rigging, so I'm going to take our skeleton here and go into pose mode and see if we can do anything. So I'll select my arm here and I can press R to rotate. You can see it's it's working, and there are bits here moving that maybe shouldn't. But this is for an automated process. This is not a terrible result. We can rotate this. Now you can see that the eyes and the helmet don't work at the moment, but we'll fix them in a minute. But more importantly, what we can do is a very nice tool that we can use, which is I can turn on Auto IK, so Auto Inverse Kinematics, which is kind of, instead of pressing OR, and I can still do that to rotate, but I can also press G, and this will let me move the rig in a much more sort of kind of dynamic way. So hang on, if I select this one here, so I can start lifting the foot. Now you can see that this foot is bending the wrong way, which is awful. So I'm going to select my armature here. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm very simply I'm just going to push that forward a little bit. And now when I'm in pose mode, its tendency will be to bend forward, because in edit mode it's already kind of moving in that direction. So what we'll do now is we'll just connect these eyes and the helmet. So I'm going to select my skeleton, and in edit mode I'm going to select a bone. So if you wanted to say a light to be attached to this helmet, for example, you could use the same sort of technique I'm using now. So any object will parent into this. So I'm going to select this bone, the head bone, because I want the helmet and the eyeballs to be the child of the head bone. So when it moves, they should move too. I go back into, I'm in pose mode, I'm back into object mode. So I'm going to select the helmet, shift select the skeleton, and go Control P. But instead of picking with automatic weights, I'm just going to go bone. And it's going to parent it to the last bone selected, which was the head bone. I'm going to do the same here with the eye. So Control P, bone, this eye, Control P, bone. Now with the armature selected, if I go into pose mode and I rotate this head, you'll see that the helmet and the eyes move with me. If I don't like my pose, I can select the bones and I can go Alt-OR and Alt-G, so which is reset location and reset rotation. So let's see if we can give our character a bit of a pose before we're going to 3D print. So we'll maybe stand them up this way. So we'll rotate his foot a little bit and the toe. So that means that he's standing on this leg here. So maybe our weight should be slightly kind of off to that side. I can actually go G. I could move this across, but that's not necessarily desirable. So maybe we'll bring... No, that's okay. We'll tilt that way. And then we can, again, using kind of the auto kinematic or inverse kinematics, we can give this a little more... and we'll bend our spine a little bit, so we'll lean him forward because he's walking forward. And maybe bring the head up just a little bit. And we'll drop this shoulder a little bit so he's bringing that part of his body forward and that part is back. Maybe we'll rotate that way, but bring that way. And bring that in a little bit. And we can rotate this. And generally just do little tweaks to get it a little bit more realistic. And then if we like it, we can save it. So I can go which is insert keyframe on location, rotation, and scale. And we haven't changed the timeline, so we're on frame 1. So we go to object mode, and now I can very quickly use that tool that annoyed me, and I can go turn off bones. And now my character is sort of partly kind of posed. And we can, so if we 3D print that, it'll be in a more interesting position than just the generic sort of T-pose or hands by side. So that's all we're going to do in this tutorial. It's just a very, very basic look at how to maybe make an extraordinarily simple skeleton, simple rig, and then to attach that to your mesh and to set the character up with a very basic pose. Okay, so we're going to leave that there for now. You're not compelled to do that. The project you're doing for me doesn't require you to pose the character. We're just going to print them as they are, but you may find that more aesthetically pleasing to get the character into the position that you want it in. All right, we'll leave it there for now.